Hello, everybody out there. We are here for a paint stream, SJGames. This time, instead of Car Wars, I have got some of the Fantasy Trip Foes miniatures for the Kickstarter that's going on right now. And in the studio with me, I have Hunter, Jimmy, and Brandon as usual.
Hello.
So we are going to paint on these. What I have right now is actually, this is something you can do with the minis. It's not actually a mini on there, but this is a giant, oversized, long Lankin. This is one of the iconic monsters from the Fantasy Trip. It does not appear in any other setting, and it is named after a Steely Dan song, which we all found out independently of one another here in the studio, trying to Google what kind of colors this thing might have. So yeah, I don't know. Hunter says it's a good song. I didn't actually listen to it myself.
I just like all Steely Dan.
Go check it out. Yeah, give it a listen. The reason why I like this long line, and other than he's very Fantasy Trip, is because what he gives you an opportunity to do is whenever you have a model like this that is like pretty much all like he's basically like a naked giant demon man, and the point of that is it's really easy when you have a model like this where he's just flesh head to toe, right? There's no armor, there's no clothes, there's no fur. It's really easy to just sort of go like, okay, well, he's just going to be all red. He's just going to be all black. But you can actually really vary it up, and just you can do all sorts of crazy stuff with color, even though, he's just one sort of texture. So if you look at the Foes Kickstarter, you can see that the one there, I sort of started with a pink body, and then I kind of went down into the like claws and made those a little bit, I think, more blue and bluish purple, and then there's some like pink on his weird, I'm not sure, are these horns? Are they tentacles? Hunter, what would you call these
I think
things?
they're kind of like more horns than like tentacles, at least in the
Yeah.
art that I've seen.
I mean, are they?
But you can
Yeah,
do whatever you want with them,
tendrils.
really.
No, of course you absolutely can. I just wonder, are they more fleshy or are they more like hardened?
When I see it, I consider them more hardened,
Yeah,
but I don't know the actual lore on it, so I think they're more
It,
hardened.
it reads like carapace to me.
Yeah, yeah, mainly because of his shoulders.
Because he does, yeah, he
the
has
shoulders
a very
kind of point up.
bony kind of
Yeah,
rib cage, and yeah, the shoulders.
Let's
do
actually
point
throw it on the spinner there, so people can see a painted mini. This is one of, I believe you painted that one as well, right?
Well, I mean, I haven't painted him yet.
No, I meant the
The
skeleton that was on there.
Oh yeah, well, so we'll start with the skeleton. He's
That's
too
one-
big, guys. He's too big. Yeah, so this is a skeleton. I really like these skeletons because they have some kind of variation. What you see too often with skeleton miniatures is they're just completely naked. So I like that this guy has hair. He's got some scraps of clothing, and he has a random boot with the toe missing. Character like that is good for skeletons, so I'm very enthusiastic about these skeletons.
And we've had a lot of questions. This is kind of a tangent, but for people in chat that may ask this, we've had a lot of questions about scale of miniatures. I believe they're designed at 32 millimeter scale. However, as you can see with like Long Link in here, if you want to throw him on there, we've scaled him up to be a little bit bigger.
I'm not sure if they are that big because they seemed to be, to me, I
28
think they
mil?
were more 28 or even
They gave
25
me
mil.
the number 32,
Did
so
they?
that's what I was going with. But it looked to me 28 mil, so in that range. It's generally what I consider like standard is 28 mil and 32 is heroic scale.
Yeah.
But so in that range, that's going to be kind of what you expect. But as you see with Long Lincoln, if you throw that one on the spinner there, we've scaled this up comparatively to the. He's already a little bit larger than the skeleton.
He's actually going to be lying down. Because,
Stand
oh,
up.
okay.
We have camera controls.
Oh yeah,
But
Oh, look at that guy.
they are scaled for 32 millimeters is what they're designed at.
gotcha. That's what I thought. Yeah. So they're scaled 32 mil. This one's obviously been scaled up. People have just been asking like what scale you can do them at, and you can obviously scale them up. I'm pretty sure you can scale them down just fine. You just got to watch out with supports and stuff like that. But if you ever want to test it, we actually have a free miniature on the campaign itself. It's also on Warehouse 23 and Drive-Thru RPG. It's an Octopus Warrior miniature, which you can just download for free right now. It's available to download. Yep, you can just download it, print it yourself, and you can check it out.
It might be important to point out that octopuses in the Fantasy Trip, they are monsters. They're not just like, a giant Pacific octopus.
Yeah, let's throw one on there.
Got out of the tank. So I'll actually put it by the skeleton because they are big dudes.
Yeah,
these
they're
in the game.
chonkers.
I think they start at like strength 20 or something. I don't know. I probably shouldn't go throwing stats around when that's not like my expertise, but they're big. they have high strength, which means they have that strength is hit points, so they have a lot of hit points. So they're beefy.
Oh yeah.
And that, I mean, TFT fans know that that's just where it begins with the octopus, right? Because they can carry multiple weapons. So you can have an octopus, and we do, I think, have an octopus with a crossbow and a shield. Or you can have them with 3 swords or a 2-handed sword and a regular sword.
And there's more sculpts getting unlocked on the campaign as we get more backers, more funding. So keep track of that. It's going to be running for a couple more weeks now through the holidays. Ends I believe January 4th is the end date on that one. So I'll let you get to painting it. I just wanted to kind of show off all these
Alrighty.
different. I know that's
Yeah.
a question we've been getting a lot, so I figured it might
No,
pop up in chat.
Absolutely. No awful green thing mini yet, and probably.
Hey,
not
if the campaign
going to
does
be.
well, never know. Could
Yeah.
throw some of those in there.
Although I did one a long time ago, the odds of the person being listening is like 0, but I saw a crazy Board Game Geek awful green thing set where people made the things out of,
Clay,
sculpting
I do
stuff.
remember that. I've seen that exact same picture.
Yeah. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start off. We're going to give this guy kind of like a pale interior, and then I'm going to try to kind of bring that out to like a red as we get away and down into the claws, give him some maybe nice black chitinous claws, and also taper the red down into the legs. And I mean, it just kind of that color variation. I mean, it just kind of looks cool primarily. But also, it does. There are, lots of animals out there in the world, furry or otherwise, that have, coloration on their bodies and different, variations. So it also does sort of seem a little bit more natural. If you do just go with one color all over the whole body, it seems kind of weirdly unnatural. At least I think so. And so that's kind of the point. Is talking about mixing it up so that it'll look a little more interesting.
I'd just like to highlight Ben has already started his palette.
Yep. Yeah.
He started
was
painting, but
doing
his
some-
palette is already in progress.
Right. I almost brought the wet palette. I don't know how it didn't end up with me. I remember putting it with all my stuff, so I don't know. Maybe it fell off on the car ride, as they sometimes do. You take a turn a little too sharp and it goes flying somewhere, so I might find it jammed up in between my car seat and the side door.
He doesn't care though, guys. He just does it to make me happy. So.
I have actually been trying to use it, but every time I do, I'll get started with it, and then I will kind of
transition to your hand.
transition. Yeah.
Yep.
What I used it for recently, again, to anybody who's been keeping up with the Kickstarter, were the brass skeletons.
Yes. Oh, thanks for reminding me. We actually posted so pictures of your brass skeletons are on Facebook now. I haven't put them on Instagram yet, but if you check out our Facebook page, we actually posted the full background and rules to using brass skeletons in the game.
Yeah, so it's just so you already got skeletons, so now it's just another cool, different way to do it. They're
Yeah, it's really neat. I like it.
kind of more like golems than a traditional undead. But yeah, so that was one where I did two. I did a non-metallic metal one and a traditional metallic metal one, and to get brass is kind of a weird greenish yellow, So to get that color, I kept that on the wet palette. So I
Nice.
actually wanted to keep it mixed up. I was like, Hunter would be so proud of me.
I
using
would
this
be.
wet palette.
Which is funny because I just painted a guy last night and I didn't use my wet palette. I was doing it on stream and I was like, well, I don't really feel like moving all this stuff off my wet palette because I'm just that lazy right now. So I just was pulling stuff onto a regular palette.
And which Car Wars car and or TFT Foes mini did you paint last night?
Boy, I was painting up the whole. It was
why-
actually it was a GW mini. I'm sorry.
Oh, Hunter.
I was not a company man last night. Well, I needed to paint up a Death Guard, and
Right.
I showed you that
I
guy.
mean, it's for your games of Munchkin Warhammer 40K, right?
I mean, technically, if they're at the office, they count as that's games of Munchkin. No, I'm actually doing some new techniques. Actually, that color I use that's Screamer Pink, right?
It is.
So
Good
the only reason I
eye.
know that is because I just bought a pot of that myself, and I used it for the first time last night, and I love it. It's like
Yeah.
probably one of my favorite new colors I have never used before.
Well, yeah, it's a nice sort of deep. It's not
It's
quite
like a magenta,
It's
yeah.
almost a magenta, but yeah, it has just a little bit of yellow in it to bring it a little closer to a red.
I love it. It's a
And-
great color.
yeah.
I was not expecting to like it as much. I just got it because I was like, I don't really have I had a contrast pink, which is a good color. Vulpus pink is a good one. But I
Oh,
wanted
okay.
I wanted more of a base type of paint because I wasn't using a lot of contrast on that model, at least for the base coats.
Anyway, if you're wondering why I was being so specific about it not quite being a magenta, it's because this is a color that I
Ah.
tried to use to replace one of my favorite P3 colors when I couldn't get it, which is Murderous Magenta.
I got you.
It's just not quite the
Not
same.
not where you want it to be, but it's
Right.
still a good
It's real
color. It's a
close.
really
No,
good color.
yeah, it is, and I still use it a lot.
Yeah, and I really dig it. That was the first time I got to use it, so I was very surprised at how well it went on, and I was just like, oh yeah,
Right, and that's probably the most important thing about it, is it coats really well
it
for a
comes
red.
super well.
Red is one of those colors that is
It-
really notorious for not wanting to cover an area completely.
Yeah, I haven't used a lot of
It's a
P3,
great base coat.
but I think I've heard that P3 red's pretty good. And
Yeah, the analog color to this with P3, I think, is probably Sanguine Highlight, which is weird because this is definitely more of a base, but it's Sanguine Highlight.
sure,
But it is, this is one of those cases where I'm normally am like a huge P3 fan, but I think I like Tactical Pink, or sorry, Screamer Pink a little bit more than the Sanguine Highlight. It's just a little bit more saturated.
yeah, I like using. I generally I have a lot of Vallejo paints, and I use Vallejo for lots of stuff, but I don't like their red. I end up going back to GW for like red tinted stuff because like I like Screamer Pink now, which is a new one for me. But I like Mephiston red, like the classic, like their regular base red color. It goes on really well. It has really good coverage, which is super hard. Like I didn't know. I was kind of spoiled by that because I didn't know how hard that was to find until I tried to switch up. Because like
Mephiston red?
yeah, well, because I had been using it for years, and then I was like, I'll do the Vallejo ones instead because I happen to have like a billion reds, and they just were all so thin, and I didn't know red was a problem color until.
Oh yeah. All right, so for the shading on the central body area, I'm going to use more of a flesh tone than a red, just to mix it up a little more. I don't know if this will work. This is all sort of new color combinations. I think it'll work. And that'll just sort of make the exterior, all that red, seem just that much more saturated. And this is Edrian flesh. It's kind of a tan flesh, if you can see. And it'll probably need a little bit darker shading than that in some places. And then another interesting thing with the long Lincoln is because he has this sort of weird bony crotch guard down here, which I guess that could be bones. And then if you wanted to, he has what appears to be sort of a bony plate on his chest, which if you wanted to, that could be exposed bone, or that could just be skin, stretched really tight over some kind of underlying bony structure. These are crazy monsters. So you kind of get to decide a lot of that yourself. There's really no telling exactly what the right way is, and there probably isn't a right way. But yeah, I cracked open ITL in the Labyrinth to learn a little bit more about these guys, and they're basically you just don't want to run into them. They're really weird, they're creepy. Fortunately, they don't travel in packs, so you're really only going to run into one of them, but they're an encounter for a full party.
Does it say where you would encounter them typically?
Dark and gloomy places. I think they favor like ruins and stuff over caves, but I think it's really like it could just be kind of anywhere. And if you have the the Wizard Malay Pocket Edition from you can buy it individually, but it was part of the Kickstarter a while back. That has a long Lincoln on the cover, but he is not colored in. So this will be only, as far as I know, the second long Lincoln to be colored. So when you get yours, that could end up being third in the world.
Yeah. And a lot of the stuff, even if you're not like a TFT guy, if maybe you do GURPS or you do one of the other major RPGs or minor RPGs, there's a lot of monsters on here that function for lots of things. And again, you're getting sculpts, so you can print out whatever you want pretty much as much as you want. So if you want a bunch of skeletons, bam, you can have a ton of skeletons. There's a lot of orc sculpts, particularly. Yep. The what are they called? Something scorpions.
Well, there are multiple tribes. I think there's the red skulls.
Yeah, they're a little bit smaller and more barbarianish, and then there's like a little more armored, I think, with the scorpions.
Yeah.
It's the something scorpions. Red scorpions, maybe. No, it was red skulls.
Yeah, well, they could both be red. Orcs like red, and
it's just called the
scorpions.
scorpions. Okay. Couldn't recall. But yeah, there's a lot of cool, and obviously the octopi and stuff like that. There's a lot of really cool, just general use fantasy stuff in there.
And the bloody skulls.
Bloody skulls, that's what it was.
Oh, it's the Bloody Skull, not the Red Skulls. Okay. Yeah, and the Lankin he could be any number of things.
Oh,
He
yeah.
could be a weird like twisted troll that some mage got a hold of, or he could just be a demon.
He's very
Any
troll
kind
and
of
demon-y to me.
infernal weirdness.
So like if you shrink the scale
Fits.
down, is he a short Lincoln?
Jimmy?
He's a regular Lankin.
I'm gonna need you to leave, Jimmy.
A couple that are like knee high, they just run around and cause you some trouble.
I don't know. We don't know much. Maybe there are baby Lankins. We don't know any.
I really hope that Log is his name this whole time. It's not
Yeah.
that there's it's not that he's even a description, it's just his name is Long.
Yeah.
Chad
There's,
is
like,
asking,
other
what are we
Lankins.
painting? What can we say the name again?
Long Lincoln.
Long Lankin.
He's a classic monster from the Fantasy Trip, pretty tough monster. This is a scaled up version of him
Yeah. So this
from
is
the Fantasy Trip Foes, which is linked in the description below. Or
Kickstarter we're running for STL miniatures.
Yes. So essentially, to explain a little bit more for people that are just now showing up, so we're running a Kickstarter for miniatures, but it's a little bit different than we've normally done in the past. So we have done minis like Ogre and some other campaigns and stuff like that. A lot of Ogre minis generally, and obviously Car Wars has minis in it as well. But we wanted to do a different type of miniature that we didn't really have the ability to run a full campaign to just run a print run of them. So we're doing STLs, which is essentially these are files that you can get and 3D print if you have a 3D printer at home, or you can use a site like Shapeways, where you can order, you can give them files, they'll print it out for you, and you just get the minis that way. You can print them on like resin printers. It actually is available. You can print on filament.
Supports for a resin print.
Yeah, it comes
Yeah.
with supports. It comes pre-supported for resin prints, but you can also, if you want, if you have like a filament printer, it'll show striations like filament generally does. But you can still print them on that.
And I
They're
think we
designed
meant-
for
Designed for resin printer first, but it is an option. And again, you can use sites like Shapeways if you don't have a printer yourself, if you're not interested in doing your own 3D printing. But it's a way for us to get like a new type of mini out there for us, because we really wanted to do fantasy minis for a while. We used to have more fantasy minis back when we were doing metal sculpts, but you can't really do metal anymore generally. It's just not cost effective. And this is a way to get a lot of stuff out there pretty quickly and pretty inexpensively. The campaign is, I mean, we're nearing like 40 sculpts if I'm not mistaken, unless we've already passed 40. I can't actually recall off the top of my head now.
Looks like we're 39.
39 sculpts, okay. And it's like the buy-in to get those sculpts is really low. And again, you're getting files, so you can, if you're not interested in Long Lincoln, for instance, you just want a bunch of skeletons, bam, you've got like a bunch of skeletons. And we're each stretch goal that we unlock is getting more different poses for those.
Skeletons with bows, skeletons with spears, skeletons with swords,
And of course, you can
skeletons with shields.
you can paint them as brass skeletons for TFT, or however you want to do it. So
Yep.
Chad is asking if the STLs have an optimal support structure. What we do is we sell them pre-supported, and we
Yes.
test it out, and we've printed them on resin printers ourselves. So we know that there shouldn't be very many problems. There's
Okay.
always problems with resin printing just because it's a chemical, and stuff like the humidity at your house can affect.
but the support should be
Yeah.
optimal, at least is
But-
how the optimal way we found to do them.
Right.
We have a this is not like us sculpting in house. We actually hired a sculptor, and we have someone doing the supports and stuff like that for it. So it's not just like us like throwing stuff together here at the office.
Yeah.
If you're worried about that.
Right, but they've been tested, and
Yeah.
they've been printed out, and we know that we know at least with our setup, we were able to get them to print with these supports.
Yep, and if you're curious about our setup, or like if you want to make sure, double check, it's on the campaign. We actually list all the printers that we use for our stuff. And,
It's an Elegoo something or other.
We've got the
Yep.
Elegoo Mars 2 here at the office,
Mhm.
and that's what we tested out at.
But I think we've tested on multiple things. So
We've tested on multiple because the contractor we work with, she's got several different printers as well.
So yeah, we've got a number of of tests on that. Plus, again, if you want to test it yourself, an example miniature, the Octopus Warrior, is available for free on the campaign. It's on Warehouse 23. The link is in the comments. It's on Drive-Thru RPG, so it's a free sculpt. You can just STL file. You can just download that and try it out yourself. Scale up or scale down. See how you want it.
Yeah,
Print 20 of them.
From the FAQ, the miniatures are, we supply them in 2 styles. One is professionally pre-supported, and the other one is without support, so you can scale it yourself.
Yes. Yes.
And they're primarily designed for resin printing,
Primarily.
just because the level of detail on them is going to be more difficult to achieve on a filament printer.
Sure.
But you're welcome to fiddle with the settings.
We've actually printed them on FDM. So we've done it on a filament, but it's like you said, it's what happens when you print a nicer, like, higher detail miniature on filament printer. It's a little more, it's just a little more pixelated, quote unquote pixelated.
A little more work to get it there. A little
Yeah.
more, not quite as much
A
detail.
little less definition.
Yeah.
Just because for every, like, layer, it's hitting a little bit more. The fidelity is just not as high, but it still works. It still works just fine. And again, you're getting, like, a lot of many possibilities, even if you're not doing that. And if you don't want to do any of that, Shapeways. I keep referencing it because a lot of people, like, as much as we want 3D printing to be like, this is the thing, this is the way, it's still it's a daunting hobby for some people, and even for me, I have a 3D printer, and it's not like the easiest thing to just bust out and keep it clean and make sure it's running and stuff. So if you don't want to do that,
Just download and hit a button and go.
Right.
Once
We're not there yet.
We're not there yet. Once we get there, then it'll be perfect. But until then, I completely understand people that don't want to do 3D printing. But Shapeways and stuff like that,
Couple more years.
still cheaper. Yeah, we need a couple for sure.
I mean,
Then you can paint them.
I thought I was on board to buy one until I found out, how difficult they are to clean, and then I was just like, well, I don't know anymore.
Resin printing has a lot of chemicals and
Yep.
and it also takes a long time to print.
Yeah.
So
It's not as instantaneous, but it's a fun hobby to do. I've enjoyed doing it's really cool being able to just make stuff at your house. It's a very weird experience to be like, to go from, like, essentially in the 90s, like, I had to drive like an hour to get to a Games Workshop store to have a hint at any miniatures in my life, to being like, hey, I like that, I'm gonna go print it in my, like, hobby room. Like, it's like, what the heck?
Or hey, this plastic piece from this
You weren't old enough to drive in the 90s.
mid-90s.
No, I wasn't. Yeah, I was not old enough to drive.
So you had to have someone drive you.
Yes. Yeah. My dad was really happy about that. He's thrilled.
Yeah, it was the same with me. There was a place it wasn't a Games Workshop store, but there was a place in the suburbs of Houston, way away from where I lived, that I'd have to get my mom to drive. She was never happy about that.
I didn't know yours was suburbs. Houston. Mine was Katy Mills
Grapevine,
Mall,
right?
so
Yeah.
you probably...
Right, Katy Mills, not Grapevine.
Yeah. No, Grapevine was Dallas. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's Katy Mills Mall.
Yep. I stopped there a few times.
Yeah, I've
back
stopped
and
there
forth,
a lot of
from
times.
UT. Maybe you were in there one of those days.
Probably, even though it was the 100th time I'd been in there, the salespeople were probably still trying to upsell me, because that's how they did.
Oh yeah, it was.
It's like
it
they'd
was
seen
very
me-
different back then. It was not as much fun.
Oh man, they'd seen me like every single weekend for like a year, and it was like, I'd still walk in. And it was like the first time they'd ever seen me in my life, and they'd be like, "What? You want to start a new army?" It's like, I can barely afford the one I have now.
Did you guys catch there was like a Netflix interview show that they do with some of their cast?
Oh, the Henry Cavill thing.
Yeah, so Felicia Day was interviewing Henry Cavill and Joey Beatty, the guy who plays Gear,
Yes.
Yeah.
Bard, and they started geeking out with each other about painting Warhammer, who had which Warhammer army, and painted them, and
They
essentially set up a match on air.
they said I actually commented on that. I shared it on our SJGames account. I said maybe we should send them some Munchkin Warhammer, which would be, if I could find it out there at the if I can get a message through to their publicist. If you're watching, Henry, I know you are. I want to send you some games. But on my
That'd be
personal
wild,
one,
yeah.
I was like, man, this dude just scheduled a Warhammer game with a co-star who I know they don't have time for it, and I can't even get Philip to get a game in with me when we have a week off of work.
Maybe I can get in there. I'll have my parents in town for at least a couple days. Maybe they can babysit while I go play.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Fun
I'm
time.
down to play. That was hilarious because he was just like, "What do you?" You could hear him say, "He's like, what do you play?" He's like, "Custodes." He's like, "You?" I'm starting Necrons. He's like, "You? Me?"
you could see the match.
Yeah,
happen.
absolutely.
And
He's
the
just like,
co-star,
point.
the co-star's like, "Oh, painting sounds kind of neat."
Yeah, they're just like, this sounds like a fun hobby. And those guys are legit like, "You, me, tomorrow, like whatever, let's go." Like
How many
Necrons
points?
on the
Let's
board.
go.
It was on. You could tell.
Oh yeah, it was done, which is hilarious because those are I have 2 painted armies, fully painted, and it's Custodes and Necrons. I'm like, if I could just play them against each other.
You think Yasker has a chance winning against Custos with Necron's Hunter playing both armies?
Yes, he does. He actually does. Unless he's bad at the game, then he might not. But you can hang. Custodes are strong, but maybe not once the Custodes gets their new book in like a month. That'll be less fun.
Isn't there a new set, a starter set?
Yeah, they have a new box set that's coming in tomorrow for me.
All right, but
Whoop whoop. But yeah, no, that's
Fantasy Trip.
yeah, exactly. Back to Fantasy Trip. We need to get him into Fantasy Trip painting. Get him get him some brass skeletons. He likes painting gold, right? He can paint brass. Maybe we can design a gold skeleton just to entrap Henry Cavill.
That's what I'm.
Jeez, man,
You think Henry Cavill might be intimidated doing a painting stream with someone as well known as I am?
has been.
All right, Brandon couldn't even hold it in.
Jimmy was laughing the entire time.
He was stifling though. Brandon didn't even. I don't know if he was trying or if he didn't try, but he was just like,
just went for it.
yeah.
Yeah, I respected you. Mainly
So
because
what color is this?
Oh, this is actually like my weirdly red toned black that I throw around.
yeah, I was kind of starting. I thought it was a brown at first. It looks very dark.
It looks almost like some sort of wash.
Yeah,
Is it
It's
just
really
because
thin.
It's blended, or?
It's really thin. Unfortunately, it dries really glossy. Something about the colors I use to mix it, like it dries really glossy. I'm not entirely sure why. But
Yep.
yeah, it's what I like. I almost never use pure black. I'm just so accustomed to using it. I didn't even think to talk about it, but it's like a great thing to put in here. So yeah, I have this little pot of tone. Oh, it's all not quite on the camera, but this is black with some like orange red and some red ink mixed in.
Wow.
And I use it when I don't want like a full-on hardcore black. I want something dark, but not a full-on black, just because black is so intense. But I almost never use pure black, only for like the most shadowed areas.
This man's so fancy. He's customizing his blacks.
Yeah,
That's
I used to have a pot that was the same, but it was green toned instead of black toned.
Oh.
But I don't. It just doesn't. It's not something I really need because I just go with this coal black, which is like it's so dark and kind of bluish greenish tinted that.
I didn't even think that was black. I thought it was a really dark green. Well, there you
Yeah.
go.
Well, I mean, it's called coal black, but it's like what you said. It's
Yeah.
really just a really dark, sort of turquoise.
That's cool. P3 has some pretty cool stuff. It's not a brand I really use myself, but it's interesting. It's cool watching you use different brands. It's neat because we're just bringing in different like supplies, base supplies here, and it's
Yeah.
kind of a blending. I really like that.
I don't know if I ever really do get into that habit with the wet palette, the sky's the limit. I might go to Vallejo, but they're like you were saying, aren't they saying they're pretty hard to track? Their colors are pretty hard to track down these days.
No, it's actually not too bad. It's just finding the ones that work for you because like it's. I mean, you've had even more experience than I have. It's always interesting, like developing what palette works because, like for me, it's like I use a lot of Vallejo, I use a lot of Citadel, and it's like certain colors and certain brands just don't work as well for me, but certain colors and other brands work super well. So like my reds and stuff generally come from Citadel, and like a lot of my blues and whatnot come from Vallejo. For some reason, I really like their blue mixes and stuff. Electric blue, wizard blue, ice, like stuff like that. Those are great blues. I use like Vallejo blue green's like one of my favorite colors ever. And my metallics, I have like these some metallics from Vallejo, some in Citadel, but like certain ones in Citadel are really really bad, and certain ones in Vallejo are really really bad. Like metallics are just one of those things that can be really good or really bad. I feel like there's not a lot of middle ground, and yeah, it's just interesting. I like a lot of the contrast paints. Although I will say the Army Painter speed paints are coming out, and I'm really interested in those. That's their answer to contrast paints. They look.
That's their version of the.
They're coming out early next year. They look really, really good. So I'm gonna try those out. I love Turbo Dork for their just like they're like the wild card unique thing because it's like I got all these good metallics, but they also got.
Vallejo is making some color shift.
They have some. They actually I have something that's I bought some minis second hand from someone who had used the color shift green and purple paint on it, and I like them. They're not bad. But I have so much Turbo Dork that I'm probably just going to do it in some kind of Turbo Dork color instead. It's a similar effect, so it's like maybe like I could see it, but like I just like Turbo Dork's brand so much when it comes to the color shift. I trust him really well when it comes to that color shifting stuff.
Oh yeah, they're all phenomenal.
Yeah, they all like some of them are subtle, some of them are really vibrant, and they just do a range of stuff really well.
So Ben, Chad has a question. What suggestions do you have for doing different types of shading and such?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of people shade differently. One of the things that's always baffled me is there's like a lot of people will talk about the two brush method, which is something I never really got into. For me, I just I try to do wet blending as much as possible. As you can see, I'm just kind of like attacking the sky and like getting in there while things are still wet to try to blend it on. You can also just sort of layer thin coats to sort of fake a blending effect. Is any of this helpful?
Well, your shadows, you earlier you used that dark, like for example, you started with that like lighter
Oh.
pink. Is it pink? Is that the
Yeah, I
top?
started with like a light pink.
But then you used like that dark flesh to get into his
yeah,
musculature.
and
So that was your.
I don't know
your
if anybody noticed. I've like totally changed tack on that, and now I'm doing purple instead of that flesh tone, because it was too like everything else is so saturated. It was just too desaturated.
But you
but
went
yeah,
with that. You got that shading on his abs, pretty, and his bone crotch. With
yeah.
that,
If you and his bone crotch.
I mean, it is what
yeah,
it
it's
is.
a bone crotch. Let's not mince words here, people. Let's not be afraid to call a bone crotch a bone crotch. Yeah, I don't know. Like you just kind of just try to let the recesses guide your hand and let the darker paint sort of find its way in there, and then I'll usually try to go above that while it's still wet with the lighter color, and sort of try to blend that in to the top a little bit better.
Yeah.
I like starting with the zenithal highlight, and that does like 90% of the work for you, and then just painting thin
Yeah.
layers of color, base color over stuff, and
Yeah, that can be pretty good.
it's
Fortunately,
really
I've
fast. you
his
know,
mouth
that's
was
why I like
not
it.
dry here. I don't know if you guys can see them bleeding uh, yellow into green in his mouth. I love painting blue mouth. I don't know why. Like I just anything that has any weird thing with me, I'm always like ready
Give it
to paint a weird blue mouth.
Like a weird magic-y blue thing going on.
Yeah.
I'll say one thing that's helped me for like quicker shades and stuff like that, because I mean, obviously with shading, there's obviously like literal shades from like GW, like the washes essentially, or what they call shades now. Null oils and Agrex shades, stuff like that. But I actually have liked doing contrast paints for shading, because like you can kind of match the tone better of the, like if I was to do like a flesh tone, I can find a flesh tone contrast paint a little bit better, and really get into the grooves. Also, and using different colors for the shades can actually tone the area around it. Like I've started using a lot of like the purple contrast paints, Magos purple and Shyish purple, in like darker skin tones for like shading on darker skin tones, because it adds
That
like
can
a
be
little more
good.
depth to the color.
Yeah, that can work pretty well. There's really like normal human flesh is just there's no real right way to do it. I mean the really brilliant paint jobs you don't really notice at first, but it's actually with flesh anyway. There's so many more colors going on than you might think. There's green shaded here, and really bright vivid reds, and sometimes oranges in other locations, all to make. And it all kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier. You can have a big, muscly, exposed torso, and it could be really easy to make the mistake of just painting it all pink. And so the really, really professional guys will just fill that with color that you don't even really notice is there. You just look at it and you think that's just a really awesome looking paint job.
The really professional guys, as if Ben's not a professional painter.
I mean, I'm not up there with like those crazy Euro paint studios like Big Child and Studio Heraldez and stuff. No, those guys are nuts.
Those guys are above even me, because I've never even like looked at their stuff. If it's they're probably on some strange eclipse area where I don't want to see it, or I'll stop painting altogether.
Maybe. I mean, they're on Instagram, so.
Well, I already look at
follow
like
them all on
Siege
Instagram.
Studios and like people like you and like some other painters that are just like really good, and and every time I do, I'm just like, is painting even worth it? No, I'm joking. Actually, I've gotten past that point. I used to be like that, where I'd look at other people's painting, like, why can't I paint that way? And now I'm like very aware of why I can't paint that way. So now instead of that, I just say, oh, I could steal this one small thing from this. I could take this one tiny technique, and that'll work.
Yeah.
So every day I just steal one small thing from Ben, and eventually I'll just surpass him.
Yeah, you have to be able to balance
Next is the
being
shoes.
inspired.
Give me your shoes, Ben.
Shoes. Fine.
And I'll mention it for people that may have showed up a little bit late. We actually just put some rules if you're into the Fantasy Trip, or if you want to check out some more Ben's minis. We put up the rules for the brass skeletons on Facebook. It's on a Facebook post there, and it'll be going up on the Daily Illuminator soon as well. So you can have it's like a little bonus kind of rules for a new monster type. We haven't really done. I don't think brass skeletons is something we've had before.
No, Steve.
That's the thing Steve invented.
Steve was
and wanted
inspired by the skeleton files / miniatures, and decided he had to do something special with them.
That's right. I was actually we actually talked. So oddly enough, I somehow forgot it, but that was as far back as we were at the Warhammer Open when he was doing his signing, and he was very miniature inspired. There was a lot of cool stuff around him, and we were talking a lot about that. And he brought up the brass skeletons and how he'd come up with those rules.
Okay.
So they're still being finalized at that point, but that's cool. That's really neat seeing it like from the inception to the being used on something like that.
Yeah.
Are you guys going to do any hobby type stuff over the holidays? Because I mean, so just so everybody knows, this is our last stream before Christmas, obviously, but then we're off another week after that. And when we come back, we're going to kind of have to see what we are going to be doing a little bit of a studio revamp in early sometime in 2022. We don't know exactly when, so just at some point we'll let you guys know. But we're going to be taking at least a couple weeks off here, probably like a week or two off, maybe. Y'all got anything fun hobby time, like doing any painting or any gaming?
Oh, I'm always doing painting, so you can be sure that there'll be some of that going on.
I'm gonna try to sneak some of the my Car Wars stuff up
Same
with
here.
me to play with my brother-in-law, who is gonna be into that, and then hoping to actually, when I get back in town, start work on some of painting my miniatures.
Nice.
So,
I've been eyeballing my Bloodborne board game sets.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
tons and tons of minis that came with that Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I brought some. I should bring my Car Wars. I was trying to think of a game to play with my brother because I'm heading back visit my dad and my brother, and I'm bringing some Necrons for sure because they're easy to paint. My thing is I don't like bringing a lot of stuff with me, so I don't want to like bring my whole paint setup. I want to be able to bring like less than 10 paints to paint something. So Car Wars might be something I could paint too there. Because that car we painted was it last week? No, 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. That one only took like 5 or 6 paints. I didn't do that many on it, and I really like the way that came out.
Yeah, you can get a pretty good thing going on with cars without too much work.
Yeah, we did that turbo dark base coat. Just did like a red windscreen, used some contrast paints and stuff, some metallics and a black, and you're good to go. Came out pretty well.
This is I mean, I'm really excited to get to paint more fantasy type stuff though, because it's definitely what I prefer.
Sure, yeah. Well, I mean, you've also been we've had been chained up to the desk doing ogre miniatures and Car Wars for such a long time.
Yeah.
Because we've had and not that you don't like doing that stuff, I'm sure, but like
Right.
you've just had to do for literally the past few years. We've been having to do so many like vehicles and cars and
Right,
stuff like
exactly,
that.
and that's really what it is.
It's nice
just
to get a
all
break.
Vehicles.
Yeah,
It's not so much the sci-fi versus fantasy. It's just I like to be able to paint faces, hands,
Sure.
weapons, armor. The Car Wars cards are cool, but it's still just like it's all metal more or less. Some of it's exposed metal, some of it's painted metal. But
Well, don't worry, you'll be back to painting Car Wars soon enough. We'll make sure of it. No, we'll try
I
to mix
got
it
a
up
whole
too.
lot of miniatures in my kit that I'm not gonna be able to get to. So
So
well, I hope you find
commission
somebody that can
painted?
help you with that.
I think we have. I actually offered to do some base coating for Philip for some of his stuff that he needed, so I might do that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I got an airbrush. I can just if you provide the paint, I don't. Air is free, so I'm okay.
Oh,
With that.
well, that's nice. It does take a while.
Yeah,
It
it
does.
is.
I mean, it's not a while, but it's
No.
it's not. It doesn't just happen.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It's like much like we were talking about with the 3D printing. That doesn't just happen. Neither does base coat.
Sure, yeah.
You gotta invest a little bit of time into it.
Yeah, I mean, time is not free, but I'm willing to do that for somebody because it's not that hard for me to just whip out the airbrush and go after it. As long as I'm not wasting my own paints on it, then it's just time, and time is fine. Like, I've actually got like I just laid out 100 minis that I have to prime, and I'm like, for me the prime part's gonna be easy. It's gonna be the cleaning the models beforehand because I
Get
was
a
like,
good podcast and sit down and just focus on it.
so my problem is I try to clean the pieces before I put it together, but eventually when you're 50 minis in on a build session, which is where I was, you're like, you mess up.
You're like, that's good enough.
And I know, but then
Get
I know I'm
pretty
like,
rough.
yeah, and then I'll be like, oh, I'll catch it before I prime them, and that what that means is I have to go through them a second time
Yeah, there's
before
no
I
way.
prime them, because then I forget which ones I messed up on, and I'm like, God,
I miss details all the time cleaning,
yeah,
and you just have to get it back after you prime. Part of it is it's not really noticeable, but there is a certain degree of translucency to all plastics,
Yeah.
and it absorbs a little bit of light, and that's why you'll think you've cleaned a model perfectly, and then you prime it, and then suddenly you notice lines everywhere. It's
Oh my
because the
God.
prime is, it's totally opaque. So none
That's
of the light is absorbed, so you can just see them immediately.
my Necrons are screaming at me right now because it's like mold lines on the like, and I was just like, I can't deal with this. I did the prime, and it was like mold lines down the legs. I'm like, why weren't you there when I did? Like, where were you before? I will
They were
say,
there. They were just camouflaged,
I'm-
man. They were hiding.
I will say, I cannot believe I'm saying this because we have mocked
Just
this
say it,
tool.
Hunter. Just say it.
Well, we've mocked
spit it out.
this. We've mocked this tool on this stream before.
Oh,
The Citadel mold line.
did it remove all the mold
It actually
lines?
works really well. I randomly picked up a lot of minis. I think I mentioned this on the stream previously. Is I picked up some lot on Facebook Marketplace, and it had that with it. And I was just like, I was so excited about it just because I was like, I finally get to test this stupid thing without having to spend like $15 or $20 on it, whatever it costs, because it's really expensive for essentially a worse knife because it's like it does
It's a
what
one-purpose.
it's a
tool.
one-purpose thing. It's like if you know the out and brown thing,
Right,
no
right.
no
unitaskers.
no unitaskers. It's the premier unitasker because it literally does the same thing that a hobby knife would do, like dragging your hobby knife along your mini to get the mold lines off. But it's not that because it's got like kind of a hook shape, and it's instead of being a knife, it's like got edges to it. It's just like a square piece of metal that's got edges on it.
I'm telling you, man, if you just flip your X-Acto knife around,
No, I and that's what I do. That's
back of that.
that's
right.
what I
well,
use.
that's the testimonial right here.
But see, that's what I'm
Hunter's-
saying is
Hunter's saying
I've-
he does that.
I
and
do
it's
that.
not the
I
same.
do the knife thing, and this thing is better. And there's a very unique function that it does that works super well. Is I didn't like that hook at the end.
Right, because it's curved and it
'Cause
can
it's
catch
cur-
on to
Well, it's curved, so
round
it hits
parts.
round parts really well. But you can also get into spots with that hook, and since the end of it isn't a point, it's a rounded thing that is like has edges on each side of it. You actually can get into tighter spaces and still not damage it.
Right,
You're not
without
gouging the
the
plastic.
thing
Yeah,
and-
it's a weird, unique thing that I was like, this tool actually works, and I hate the fact that it works so well because it's like I can't like recommend it to people because of the cost, but at the same time, it's like I kind of can because it just works really well. And I've used it definitely more than my knife for cleaning mold lines now, and it really works. It's just really funny. It's like a strange testimonial but it saved my life during 100 minis. Like just
yeah.
and you.
And how about Car Wars minis? Does it work on them?
I haven't actually tested on the car because I
What?
will only clean the two, and
That's what we want to know.
well, I didn't actually clean them super well. The two I picked, I picked two that didn't really have mold lines on them because they were already like kind of smooth models. I do have one that I need to clean up that I haven't yet, but because I was doing one of the bigger boxier ones, I forgot what it was called. It was the one that you did the dry brush method on. It looked like a dump truck.
Butcher, maybe?
Butcher, yeah. I need to do that with that one, but yeah, I haven't cleaned them all up yet. We've been doing Car Wars playtesting stuff lately, so I haven't done a lot of painting on Car Wars. Been doing some scenario stuff, so fun times.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, it is. It is. I'm really excited about the possibilities, though. I hope the campaign keeps doing well because I want to see what else we can do because this allows us to do miniatures that we can't. Not can't, but the risk would be probably too high for us to do full plastic runs of stuff. Because even as it is, with the ones that we do plastic minis for, it's tough nowadays. Plastic is expensive,
Well,
and doing mini sets
we can
is
deliver an STL a lot easier.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
exactly.
what I was gonna say. Was like we
Right.
can't
Your cargo ship is not going to get stuck in port.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
That's as
It-
big a deal as the cost.
Yeah, with the
point.
with the issues that have taken place over the past year and a half, 2 years now, it's definitely become like, hey, do we have an alternative? And this is a good thing to test out, I think, right now. So I hope people are enjoying it because it's doing pretty well for us. It's actually not bad
This is
for our
full
first
gray
STL.
spot. I just completely like I was painting this whole time. I just missed this whole
Yeah, man,
area here.
that's his
What's up with
tattoo.
that?
That's
What's
where
up
you're
with
gonna
that?
freehand a
That's his
tattoo.
birthmark. Long Lincolns are very sensitive about their gray birthmarks. This is a TFT fact.
Oh no, he's developing TFT cannon. Steve's gonna come in here.
Like any PC that discovers his gray birthmark is at like +5 dex or something. No, that's not a roll. Nobody can use that roll. All right, so he is getting pretty close. How much time do we have left, guys?
Oh, we got about 10, 15 minutes probably.
Really?
It's not too
Yeah,
bad
And
too.
we've been going 48 minutes now.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's been.
All right. Well, it did not
I
seem
mentioned this
long,
on the
but
Car
that's
Wars
cool.
stream. It's really weird when you're playing games. It's like, oh, no time has passed at all. But when I'm painting minis, I will just be like, man, it's going. I'm getting in the groove, and then it's like we're already an hour in. It's like, gotta finish up. It's very interesting how time passes. But to be fair, that happens when I'm doing it at home too. So I get into that groove.
What do you mean it's 2 a.m.?
Jeez. Last night I was in full.
Yeah, you send me texts at like 3 in the morning, like
Yeah,
all the time.
I don't expect
It's not a
people.
problem.
Well, last night I probably sent it at 4 a.m. because I was like, I want to stream tonight, so I streamed on my own account last night, and then I was like, also I need to wrap all my gifts tonight, and so I streamed, and then I started wrapping gifts. And I had a bunch of stuff I had to wrap, so then I started watching Christmas movies. So I watched I started the Santa Claus at midnight, and then I watched Ernest Saves Christmas. It was just like up really late.
I was starting to wrap stuff last night and ended up also marathoning the new season of Agretsuko.
Oh, there you go. Yeah,
So I gotta watch a few while I wrap, and then the season finished.
yeah.
Right, so I'm working on the eyes here. So what I'm done. So we're basically doing this eye as one big pupil. This is a big cave-dwelling creature, so giant pupils. So I've started with the lighter color. So now I'm going to go in here to finish off the pupil, and I'm going to do a dark line over that, and hopefully I can do this weird angle so you guys can see. And you leave the white behind. And anyway, I don't know. I think it's cool. Hopefully you guys can see it well.
Oh, I think you can see it well.
And then we're going to do the same on the other side.
Oddly enough, if you're interested in Long Lincoln and other monsters and like want to see line art for their for reference, this is a weird recommendation, but we actually have a Fantasy Trip coloring book that's available as a PDF, and it has Long Lincoln in there because I've actually colored
yeah.
I colored Long Lincoln, and if you want to use it as a test before you do a paint on a mini, I just thought about that. Like I might actually, if I ever paint Long Lincoln,
Yeah, do that.
do the coloring book thing first because they're pretty good models. They're based on the Liz Danforth art, like the original art.
Give you an idea of where your general color
Yeah.
shadings are going to go and everything.
Yeah, for sure. Because they've got good like, it's 2D, but it's still got a good profile of the monster, so you can generally get a good idea and just kind of extrapolate 3D parts of it.
Sometimes I'll take pictures of minis that are primed and then throw it into Photoshop.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
I've seen people do that before. That's an interesting. I like that a lot, actually.
I've done that for like professional stuff. I did it for
Oh, this isn't professional
One
for you.
of
I'm so
the-
sorry.
one of the. I was about to say one of the ogres, not the ogre, but there
Oh,
was
okay.
there was a fencer that I did, and I
think I know
tried a
which one you're
few
talking
different
about.
color schemes on that guy first. He's the sort of pale, almost oceany kind of blue one.
Yeah. I remember that one.
Yeah, I didn't know exactly how he might end up. And that was like we didn't have a factory sample yet, so I didn't want to screw it up and have to start all over again. So I wanted to make sure I really liked the scheme first. And then there've been some others just when I've been handed a commission and they're like, do something cool with it. It's like, no, you don't want me to finish this up and have the color scheme not be something that you like. And then, sure enough, I was right because they were not. They looked at the picture. They're like, oh no, we actually were thinking something more like this. It's like, oh, but you didn't tell me. You just
You said do something cool.
yeah,
This is
exactly.
cool.
Yeah,
What paintbrush are you using there, by the way?
this is a MIG.
Okay.
They're
I've been
not.
looking
They're,
at new. This is for me personally, but maybe it'll help people at home. I've been looking at new paintbrushes.
Yeah, there are two that I've been using lately just because they're so much less expensive than the Winsor Newton Series 7. They're almost as good. They are noticeably not quite as good, but it's the MIG and this AIT art that I found on Amazon. They're both Sable brushes, but they're not. I think it says it's Kolinsky Sable, but there's different grades. I've never had the fortitude to look into how they harvest the fur from the animal, but there are like, if they use all the little hairs, they're gonna be good hairs and not, less good hairs. It's just kind of like the same with coffee, like
Same with anything. Same with meat. Same with stuff
yeah,
like that. It's like you're harvesting the thing. You can sell things. I
right.
assume
So
that's how it works because there's a lot of sable now, and it's
right.
like
So the best hairs are gonna go in the most expensive brushes, but they're not gonna use all the hair. There's going to be some thicker, coarser ones, or some that are less even.
sure.
And I think that's where
I might try
those
that
end
out.
up on these brushes.
What size is it?
This is a 00. Usually I use a 0, 00. I don't need a 00 because they actually do come down to a decent point, and you just don't need it. But
Sure.
I think it was just that I was at Game Castle and they did not have a 0. They
Sure.
had a 00, and it's about the same.
Okay. Sorry for getting off topic there. I just was
No,
curious.
it's fine. It's a good, definitely a painting related question. Good to ask. So I'm trying to think. Other than just general polish, I don't really know. His teeth need a wash, but I already kind of screwed that whole area up by going in when it was not quite dry yet. So I don't want to mess with it.
Sure, sure.
But that would be like one of the ways I'd finish him. Oh, on the side of his mouth can use a little bit more highlighting, a little bit more definition.
Yeah.
But this has been a great one to paint for the stream. We we
You pretty
had
much knocked out all the blocking on this thing.
yeah we had just sort of painted or printed for fun. And then there was actually some debate like, well, do we use him because he's not really part of the campaign, but people could make him if they wanted to, if they scaled up the file. And since he already exists, I was like, well, why don't I just use him for the stream? It'll just be fun.
Yeah. And we still got some octopi we could do on a future stream, and
Yeah.
I'm sure now that the campaign's funded and it'll be delivering with bonuses, but I'm sure in some way we'll have these prints available later as well for people to buy. So there's no reason why we shouldn't do more TFT paint, and especially if people want, just let us know in the comments if you're interested in more of this stuff. I definitely like doing some different, mixing it up, do some Car Wars, do some TFT, do all sorts of stuff. We like just painting and doing hobby stuff. So having a lot of fun with that. It'll give me an excuse to paint some TFT minis because I haven't actually done this yet. I'd love to paint skeletons. That was my life for a while with vampire counts.
Well,
I
yeah,
just
and
painted
you
so
have
many
your
skeletons.
3D printer. You can print a whole army of skeletons.
Yeah.
And play them in TFT or whichever game you like.
Mhm.
Because skeletons are skeletons, and these are pretty good skeletons.
Yeah, it's actually I have a small collection of skeleton action figures. Skeletons are I'm a big fan of like fantasy skeletons.
Is it from that old weird '90s show, Skeletons Alive or whatever?
Skeleton
no, it's
Warriors.
Mummies Alive.
Mummies Alive is also cool, but I still have a single. As a child, my parents gave me one. My mom gave me one Skeleton Warriors action figure. I still have it somewhere.
Skeletons were my very first minis. I bought them thinking it
Yeah.
was some kind of game. And then I opened it up and it was just skeletons, and I was like, "What is going on here?"
Dude, I don't know what it
then-
is.
And I was hooked ever
But then
since.
skeletons.
Skeletons are just like my favorite like monster thing in
And
general.
It was some kind of game.
It was some kind of game. It was the rest
It
of your
really
life.
was some kind of game, but it didn't come with rules, so I had no idea what it was for. Took a little bit more investigating to.
I'm a
figure
sucker
that
for
out.
skeletons. I really like skeletons of different types. Like I have this little small shrine of skeleton stuff. It's like a He-Man scare glow, and the Storm Collectibles did some skeletons from Golden Axe the skeleton figures. They look like the skeletons from Golden Axe.
Is it
Now-
weird enough that when people come over, like if they have to have like a plumber or electrician come to your place, is it a weird enough skeleton shrine that they'll be like creeped out by it?
I'm gonna be honest with you. If a plumber or electrician comes over to a place, that's probably the third weirdest thing they see before they get to the
Like yeah, just that.
There's
day.
there's way more questions about. At that point, they're probably so like stunned that they don't even care. They don't even notice the skeleton shrine. Every single time someone comes over to my place to like at the apartment complex, they occasionally have to come in and do some inspection or some repair or something, and it's always like, man, you have a lot of games, and I'm like, I'm glad that it's just the games and not the random Gundams or the action figures or the miniatures that I have lying around that you've pointed out. I've distracted you with just the board games because that's the semi-normal thing that I have.
Well, hey, as long as Henry Cavill keeps it up, miniatures will just become more normalized.
Yeah, and maybe Philip will actually play a game of Warhammer with me.
And is he just saying he's too busy, or is
He's
it
always
like
too
a
busy.
COVID
See,
thing?
that's me and you. Me and you, Ben. We schedule our game.
Yeah.
You could just be with the GSC.
Yep.
Again.
Well, I did actually finish a few new things.
Oh, nice.
So-
We need to get some games in. I love playing games, especially now that we're gonna have a little time off. I want to get some games in. Get some Car Wars in. Gonna get some other. I think I'll take Car Wars home with me. I think that'll be the thing I take for Christmas.
Yeah, I should go
I've
grab
got,
that while I'm here.
One set of cards bindered. I got to see if I can do another one.
Oh,
tonight or not.
don't even talk to me about organizing it yet. I'm not ready to cross that mountain, Jimmy.
Well, I did one so I can like start looking through build and brainstorming builds and stuff.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, we can't really talk about the scenario, but I like the car I made for that scenario. That I can talk about the car we made for that scenario.
I think
The Ram.
Fox and I tried to build pretty similar cars, and she built it better than I did.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see that one feature that she used. I'm like, oh yeah, that's. Had I seen that one, I should have used that.
Mhm.
Although I would not have used the turret she used.
No.
Ah, there we are.
But
The old Agrax Earthshade to do the teeth with,
That so
and then I think he might be ready for the
the
wheel.
glam camp.
Yeah, the
that
glam
that
camp.
bottle size is a nightmare. I think it's hilarious because like the earth shades and all the shade colors were always sold in the smaller bottles, and then they were already getting knocked over, and then they made these tall bottles for all the shades. Like they made the tallest bottles for the wettest paints that will just immediately
you
spill,
just go everywhere. Yeah.
and like the least stable container they could possibly put it in.
Which means you have to buy more of it.
Yeah.
I have knocked over many of them.
Yeah,
and
I knocked
don't
over.
like it.
I had for me it comes in like in just
All right, we'll come over
waves. There it
And
is.
you can see.
Wow, that looks great.
This is a secret. This
Nope,
is
it's not
not
it.
something I typically do, but it's a secret. You'll see what I'm talking about when he rotates around. There it comes. A lot of times, studio paint jobs for models, we don't do the backs because
Is that real?
yeah, if you don't have time. I didn't know that until so weird thing. One of my favorite Hunter has heard me talk about these all the time. I'll talk to Zero or anybody about it. I love the old line of Rackham miniatures, which is a French company
Yep.
that lasted from like 1998 to like 2007. And they did this really great range of fantasy minis that was really whimsical, had this really cool art style. It was pretty popular, and people said this about dozens of companies over the years, but there was a little while where they were the ones. Are they going to be the ones to dethrone Games Workshop? And of course, they never did. Nobody ever has. But that came up anyway. I have gone way off topic. So after they folded, their assets got shopped around, and weirdly, for a very short time, Fantasy Flight Games had all their stuff,
I do
and
remember that.
they
Yeah.
put a lot of the minis on their website. The only way to know about this was just to go looking for it, because I don't think they ever promoted it. But they actually had, for all these Rackham minis, the same like 3D spinny view that you can find on the minis on the Games Workshop website.
Oh.
So you can actually look at them, and so many of them, they were so well known for these gorgeous, gorgeous paint jobs. That was really what did it. Was like they were doing things with color. They were doing non-metallic metal when nobody else was. They had, when they really hit the scene hard in like 2002, they had the best paint jobs in the world, hands down. But then when Fantasy Flight Games had them and did these rotations, you could see that a lot of them, they did not paint the backs. Or if they did, it was
That's
like
funny.
really limited. And that's the thing. Like if you only have so much time
Sure.
and you
Sure.
you need that picture, like you just can't do it. It's like, okay, we'll just do the front and we'll take
Yeah.
a picture. And
Well, no,
nobody
that
will
makes
know.
that makes a lot of sense
Nobody
because
will
it's like
ever know.
until someone gets your assets and puts it on a 3D
Right,
spin
exactly.
on their
It's like
website.
it's like, and how did they not notice that they were doing that? That you
Because the
could
person
see
taking
it.
that picture was not a painter, was just a person that takes pictures.
Yeah,
It's like, wow, that looks like crap. I guess I'll put it on the website.
yeah.
That's
But
funny. That's funny.
I'm convinced that it happens all the time.
I wouldn't be
At least
surprised.
getting them ready for like announcements
Sure.
and stuff. maybe finish up
Announcements
later.
Any sort
and-
of any sort of like catalog shoot where you know
Yeah.
the angles. that
Yeah,
are gonna
exactly.
happen.
For sure, no, that honestly just makes a ton of sense because you can always go back and paint the back. It's not like it's
Right.
impossible to go back and fix a mini like this. You
Right,
can
it's
just
not
go
like
back
it's
and
not
do
like
it.
releasing a video game with like a bunch of missing levels.
Yeah,
Or well, no, even that you could patch. Okay, it's not like releasing a board game with a
called
bunch of
DLC.
missing components.
I mean,
Because you can just go back and do that. Just
Yeah,
take more pictures.
It's called
later.
early access now.
Yeah.
but yeah, that's
Yes,
the
this is my early access.
that's early
Long
access.
Lincoln.
This is beta long Lincoln. So yeah, that was awesome, Ben. I appreciate you coming in kind of short notice and doing this pre-Christmas. I know you're busy and doing holiday stuff.
Yeah,
but
there's always more work to do.
but we
This is
appreciate
This
that.
is also always a fun reprieve from layouts and that sort of thing.
Awesome. We'll go back to doing lounge joking.
Now get lost and go do more layouts.
So guys, I think that'll probably do it for now. We'll have you back on probably in January to do some more stuff at some point. We'll see what we can do minis wise around then.
Yep.
And for the rest of you guys, thanks for tuning in
Yep.
all year. It's been another year of SJGames Live.
Yes. And go check out Foes. Get some Foes. Download some Foes.
Yeah, at least get the free one. There's no reason not to get the free mini.
Yeah.
It's out there. Get the free one, test out, see if you like it yourself. And I hope you guys have a really Merry Christmas. We won't see you for the New Year, so hopefully you have a great New Year. Celebrate all that. Hope you're with your friends and family. If not, if you're spending it by yourself, have fun still. Just hang out, chill out, have some fun, and be cool to retail workers. It's a bad week for them.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so y'all have a great holiday, and we'll see you next year
Yep.
on
Thanks.
SJGames Live.
Yep.
See you,
Thanks
folks.
a lot for stopping by and watching. Have an awesome holiday season.